"Sir, you can't drive in here. Residents only." That's how it started. I'm gripping my steering wheel, staring at a shiny new gate with a sign that reads Ridgeline Heights, a Whitmore luxury community. And behind that gate, rows of beige houses, 96 of them. Every single one standing where my trees used to breathe. If that sight just hit you in the gut, hit like. Because I swear, I felt my heartbeat in my ears. The guard leans in through my window, gum popping, tone dripping arrogance. "You lost, buddy." "No," I tell him. "You are. This is my land." He snorts that half laugh that says I don't believe you, but I'm too bored to argue. And then she appears. Fuchsia suit, a diamond watch flashing in the sun. Karen Whitmore, HOA president developer, walking definition of entitlement. "Problem, Ray," she says, not even looking at me. "Yeah," I answer. "You built your dream homes on my property." She turns that smile on me, the corporate kind that says I've already decided you don't matter. "Oh, sweetheart, this parcel was abandoned. We have a title. You should turn around before I call the sheriff." My jaw locks, my hands tighten on the wheel. "I've paid every tax every year," I say. "Check the records." She tilts her head. "People like you don't win against people like us." If that line made your blood boil, drop a comment right now, because that's when I stopped breathing air and started breathing purpose. I didn't shout, didn't cuss, just stared at her and said, "Go ahead, finish building your 96 houses." Then I put my truck in gear and drove off, calm, silent, planning, because what she didn't know, I was about to let her finish and then take everything back. She called me a squatter. I called my lawyer. Hit subscribe. You'll want to see how that phone call changed everything.
The second I left that gate, I called my lawyer. "Hey, remember that property my granddad left me?" I said. He goes, "Yeah, what about it?" "They built 96 houses on it." Silence. Then he laughed, thought I was kidding. I wasn't. That night I sat at my kitchen table, coffee gone cold, laptop glowing, typed Ridgeline Heights into the county database. There it was, Whitmore Development LLC. Karen's name was practically flashing off the page in my head. I opened the permits. 96 homes, pre-sold for $485,000 each. That's more than $16 million in total on my land. If that number hit you like a gut punch, tap like, because my hands were literally shaking. Every record screamed the same thing. They knew this land wasn't theirs. They just gambled I'd never find out. The next morning, I called the number on Karen's glossy card. Some receptionist answered, voice sugar sweet and sharp enough to cut glass. "Mr. Care's office. Tell him Dakota Flint's not signing a quitclaim deed," I said. "And he can keep his 15 grand bribe." Click, she hung up. $15,000 for $4 million worth of forest. That wasn't a deal. That was a slap with paperwork attached. If you've ever had someone think you're too small to fight back, share this. Because that was the moment I decided to go full engineer on her scam. Build the case brick by brick. Karen thought her fuchsia suit and fake smile could bury me under contracts. She was about to learn real receipts don't wrinkle. Next call, a lawyer whose name made corporations panic. Hit subscribe, you're about to meet the woman who turned the whole game upside down. Lydia Chen answered on the second ring. Her voice was calm, too calm, like someone who already knew she was about to win. "Mr. Flint," she said, "you're not crazy, you're sitting on a multi-million-dollar mess." I told her everything, Karen Whitmore, 96 homes, the 15 grand bribe. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she just said, "Perfect, let them keep building." I blinked. "Come again, let them finish," she repeated. "Every nail, every mailbox. Once the subdivision's complete, we walk into court with the deed, and they'll owe you more than dirt. They'll owe you rent on every house they built." If that just made your eyebrows jump, hit like, because mine nearly flew off. I asked, "Won't that take months?" She smiled on the phone. "Exactly, gives us time to document everything they do wrong." That's when I realized Lydia wasn't playing defense, she was setting a trap. We spent the next week gathering proof. Drone photos, assessor receipts, survey maps older than Karen's company. Lydia kept saying, "Don't yell, don't post, don't warn them, we want them to be confident." Meanwhile, Karen strutted around Ridgeline Heights like a queen. New billboard, new cars, she even hosted a ribbon-cutting ceremony right on my ridge line. If that arrogance made you roll your eyes, drop a comment, because I was there, filming it all from the tree line. By the end of that month, Lydia had a folder thick enough to crush egos. She looked at me across her desk and said, "Mr. Flint, by the time we're done, she'll wish she'd built those 96 houses on the moon." Karen thought the foundation was solid. Wait till you see what happens when the ground starts cracking. Hit subscribe, it's about to get messy.
Lydia's plan was simple. Watch them hang themselves. So, while Karen poured concrete and popped champagne, I quietly built my own foundation, one made of proof. Every weekend, I drove out there. Parked on the ridge, zoom lens ready, timestamp running. Construction trucks rolled in at sunrise, workers hauling beams that technically belonged to me. Each picture, each video, is one more nail in their legal coffin. If that kind of quiet revenge hits home, tap like because you know that's satisfaction. Karen didn't notice me at first. Why would she? To her, I was just some angry local. She kept showing up in that fuchsia suit, clipboard in hand, posing for photos like she'd birthed the American dream. I'd sit in my truck, coffee in hand, whispering, "Keep smiling, Karen, you're on camera." By July, the neighborhood looked finished with white fences, manicured lawns, and little "sold" signs staked in the dirt. Karen even hosted a homeowner appreciation day. Music, balloons, the whole corporate circus. I filmed every second. That same week, Lydia called. "Time to file," she said. Her voice had that cool edge against the sound of blood in the water. We mailed copies of the deed, tax receipts, survey records, and drone footage to the county clerk. It was official. Whitmore Development was standing on stolen ground. If you've ever been wronged and waited for that perfect moment to strike, share this story. Because that's exactly what we were doing, waiting, patient and precise. Karen thought she was laying a foundation. She was really building evidence brick by brick for me. She had her ribbon cutting. Now it was my turn for scissors. Hit subscribe, next part, the HOA goes dirty. I knew the day would come when they'd notice me watching. It started with a letter, official letterhead, bold font. "Cease from trespassing on private property." I laughed. Then I framed it. If that kind of petty move made you grin, hit like, because that was just the warm-up. A week later, a sheriff's deputy showed up at my door. He looked tired. "Mr. Flint, we got a complaint from Ridgeline Heights HOA. Says you've been harassing residents." I showed him my deed, my tax receipts, the time-stamped footage. He just nodded and said quietly, "Between you and me, they're nervous." That's when I knew Lydia's plan was working. When powerful people start getting loud, it's because they feel the ground moving. Then the smear campaign hit, Facebook posts, local groups, even flyers at the grocery store. "Man claims ownership of family neighborhood, harasses families." They used my photo, my name. My sister called, panicking. "Dakota, they're saying you're stalking people." I told her, "Let them talk. Every word they post becomes Exhibit A. If you've ever been dragged online for telling the truth, drop a comment. You know that burn." Karen wasn't done, though. She held a press conference right in front of one of my oak trees, claiming I was trying to extort her company. Fuchsia suit, sunglasses, fake concern. She looked straight into the camera and said, "We stand for honesty and community." I swear, I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. Because behind that fake smile I could see it, fear. And fear meant one thing, we were close. They thought a smear campaign could bury me. They didn't realize every lie was evidence. I get the email that blows their whole operation wide open. Have you ever gotten an email that makes your stomach drop and your heart race at the same time? Yeah, that happened. It came from a burner account, no name, no signature. Just the subject line. "You're right." If that already gave you goosebumps, hit like because that's exactly what I felt opening it. Inside was a single paragraph. "They knew, Mr. Flint. Karen knew the land was yours. Check the internal emails between her and the county assessor's office, dated January 9th. They flagged your deed and built anyway." Attached were PDFs, screenshots of Whitmore Development's internal messages. Karen's name, time-stamped, and one line that froze me. "Don't worry, he won't find out until after closing." I just sat there, staring at the screen. Everything Lydia said was true. They'd built their kingdom on a lie. I forwarded it all to Lydia. 5 minutes later, she called. No hello, no small talk. Dakota, she said, you just handed me a silver bullet. She walked me through what it meant: fraud, conspiracy, intent to deceive. This wasn't just a civil case anymore, it was criminal. If you've ever had a moment where karma finally shows up wearing steel-toe boots, drop a comment, because that's what this felt like. That night, I drove back out to Ridgeline Heights, watched the porch lights flicker across those 96 homes. Families inside, dinner on the table, kids laughing, completely unaware that the ground beneath them didn't even legally belong to their builder. Karen thought she'd buried me under paperwork. She didn't realize she just handed me her own shovel. The next morning, Lydia filed the lawsuit, and what happened in court made Karen's fuchsia smile finally crack. Hit subscribe. It's about to get real. The courthouse smelled like old wood and nerves. Rows of people whispering, lawyers shuffling papers, that low hum before things explode. I took a seat beside Lydia. She didn't say much, just slid a folder across the table. Inside were the emails. Karen's emails. If that setup already has you grinning, hit like, because this was the moment everything started tipping. Karen walked in last. Same fuchsia suit, different sunglasses, trying to look like this was another ribbon cutting instead of a lawsuit. Behind her, 2 lawyers in matching grey suits, probably billed by the minute. The judge called our case. Lydia stood up, cool as winter. Your Honor, before we begin, we'd like to submit Exhibit A. She lifted one printed email and read it out loud. Don't worry, he won't find out until after closing. The courtroom went still. Karen's lawyer objected, stammered, tried to spin it as taken out of context. Lydia didn't blink. Context, she said, is exactly why we're here. If you've ever seen someone's confidence melt right in front of you, drop a comment, because watching Karen's smile fade was art. Lydia went on, showing tax receipts, survey maps, and my grandfather's original deed. Each page hit harder than the last. The judge leaned forward, eyebrows raised. Mrs. Whitmore, he said, were you aware this property was owned by Mr. Flint? Karen opened her mouth, then closed it. Silence. That silence was worth every sleepless night. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Karen brushed past them, no smile this time, fuchsia suit blazing like a warning flare. Lydia just whispered, round 1. If you've ever watched a bully finally blink, share this, because that was the blink I'd been waiting for. I thought that was the end. I was wrong. That night, someone broke into my house. You're not gonna believe what they left behind. That night I came home riding high. We'd finally hit them where it hurt. I left the courthouse smiling, thinking maybe I could finally sleep. Turns out I was wrong. The front door was open. Just open. A single hinge squeaked in the wind. Inside, lights off. Silence. I stepped in slowly, one hand on the wall, switch every instinct screaming, don't. The living room looked normal until I noticed my desk drawer open. The folder with copies of the deed was gone. In its place lay one sheet of paper printed in red ink. Drop the case. No signature, no fingerprints, just that line. I called Lydia. She didn't even sound surprised. Take photos, she said. Don't touch anything, then call the sheriff. 2 deputies showed up 20 minutes later. One took notes, the other kept looking at me like I was imagining things. Nothing else missing. No, I said. Just the evidence. He sighed. Might have been kids. Sure, kids who knew how to bypass a deadbolt and only steal legal documents. If you've ever been brushed off when something real happened to you, comment, because that helpless anger. It's real. I barely slept. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. By morning, I was done being scared. I scanned every photo, every receipt, and backed them up in 5 different places. Then I emailed Lydia. They want me to drop it. I'm doubling down. Because if they were breaking into my house, it meant one thing: we were finally hitting nerves. Karen thought she could scare me off. Instead, she proved I was winning. Next, we walked back into court. And this time, the whole room flips.
The court felt different the second time. No nerves this round, just focus. I walked in with Lydia and 3 boxes of evidence. Karen walked in late, fuchsia suit blazing like she was trying to blind the truth. The judge looked tired. Counselors, I hope we can make this brief. Lydia stood, calm, steady, the kind of voice that owns a room without shouting. Your Honor, this case is no longer about confusion or paperwork. It's about intent. Then she started laying it out, every forged signature, every doctored form, every fake email thread. And finally, the red ink threat from my house, printed and enlarged on a poster board. Karen's lawyer jumped up, sputtering. Objection, relevance. Lydia didn't even flinch. Relevance, they broke into my client's home to steal government documents. I'd call that relevant. The judge adjusted his glasses and stared right at Karen. Mrs. Whitmore, would you like to respond? Karen opened her mouth. Nothing came out. You could almost hear her reputation cracking. When Lydia dropped the final email, the one where Karen wrote, "He won't find out until after closing," the courtroom went silent. Then the judge said the words I'd been waiting months to hear. Judgment in favor of Mr. Flint. I didn't cheer, didn't move, just breathed, slow, heavy. If you've ever fought a fight everyone told you you'd lose, drop a comment because that breath feels like rebirth. Karen didn't look at me as she left. The cameras flashed, reporters shouted, and her fuchsia suit disappeared into the parking lot crowd. $16 million in property, mine again, but winning didn't feel like revenge. It felt like standing on solid ground for the first time. I thought it was over. But owning 96 homes comes with a choice I never saw coming. I'll decide what to do with all of them. Winning felt strange. Everyone thinks victory tastes sweet, but mine tasted like drywall dust and silence. The judge's gavel had barely hit before people started calling me the man who owns 96 homes. News vans outside my gate. Emails from investors, even strangers offering to help manage the properties. Lydia called me a week later. Dakota, you're officially the owner, she said. I asked, what happens to the families living there? She hesitated. Legally, you could evict, sell, do whatever you want. That hit hard. I thought about those kids riding scooters, the families who bought dreams they didn't know were built on lies. Karen had disappeared, no statements, no apologies. Just silence and lawsuits piling up behind her. One evening I drove through Ridgeline Heights, my neighborhood now, porch lights on, dogs barking. I parked under a half-built street lamp and just watched. That land had life again. Not mine alone anymore, ours. The next morning I called Lydia. Draw up papers, I said. I'm transferring each house to the families who live in them, free and clear. She went quiet. You sure? Yeah, I said. Granddad didn't raise me to profit off someone else's pain. If that moment hit you right in the chest, share this story, because doing the right thing doesn't always pay in cash, but it pays in peace. When the last signature was done, I stood on the ridge, same spot where it all began, wind in the trees. Silence is finally clean. I didn't just get justice, I got peace. But before I walked away, I had one more promise to keep, the one written in my grandfather's shaky handwriting. You'll want to hear it. After everything, the lawsuits, the headlines, the threats, I finally drove back to where it all started, the ridge. The same stretch of dirt where my granddad taught me how to read a compass, how to build a fire, how to stand my ground. The houses were quiet now. Kids' laughter echoes off new fences and the smell of barbecue floats through the air. It didn't look like the place I grew up, but somehow it still felt like home. I parked near the oak tree he planted with me when I was 10. Half the trunk was scarred, but it was still standing, kind of like me. I knelt, pressed my hand to the soil, and whispered, "We did it, old man. We got it back." There was no applause, no camera, just wind and peace and a weight lifting off my shoulders that I didn't even realize I was still carrying. A few weeks later, I set up the Flint Foundation, a scholarship for young engineers from small towns. Kids who wanted to build, not take. Lydia helped draft the paperwork. She joked, "You sure you don't want to build another subdivision?" I laughed. Nah, I'm done building for profit. I'm building for legacy now. If that shift hits you in the heart, share this story, because sometimes winning isn't about the money. It's about making sure the people after you don't fight the same war. As the sun set, I could almost hear Granddad's voice again. Keep your land, keep your name, keep your word. But before I left, I realized there's one thing everyone should know before they sign anything. The last part is the lesson I learned the hard way. You know, people keep asking me what the real lesson was. Was it about land, money, winning? Nah, it was about receipts. Every tax form, every picture, every time-stamped email, that's what saved me. Because when people with power think they can erase your truth, your receipts become your armor. If you've ever had to prove yourself when no one believed you, hit like, because that feeling of finally being heard, it's unreal. Karen's gone now. Her company folded 6 months after the verdict. The fuchsia suit, probably sitting in some box labeled evidence. I don't hate her, I don't need to. The law already handled that part. These days, I wake up early, make coffee. Walk the ridge line that used to be a battlefield. 96 homes, lights glowing softly through the windows, families safe, kids laughing, that's my peace. And every time the mail comes, I still keep every envelope. Not out of paranoia, out of principle, because proof isn't just paperwork. It's power to anyone fighting a quiet fight against an HOA, a company, a system. Remember, stay calm, stay patient, document everything. Your story might not trend, but it'll stand. I didn't set out to be some hero, I just refused to be erased. And if this story gave you even a spark of that same fight, we're just getting started. Because out here, truth takes time, and you'd better keep your receipts. You never know who's watching your story, right? Maybe someone out there's fighting their own version of this. Maybe it's not about land, maybe it's about their name, their dream, their peace. If this story gave you even a little bit of strength, drop a like so the algorithm pushes it to someone who needs it tonight. Comment on what part hit you hardest. I read every one. And if you believe that truth always finds its way back, no matter how long it takes, subscribe. Because around here we don't just tell stories, we build reminders that regular people still win.